Let's cross live now to my colleague Regini, who is in the newsroom for us to give us a fuller picture of what the BBC is going to be bringing you in the next few weeks.
Well, Geeta, you can see there the entire newsroom, not far from where you are, of course, in Studio E. And this is where, of course, on any day, it's incredibly busy. But of course, in a general election, it's even busier. Now, I'll just give you some geography here. So you can look over there, viewers, you can see the back of Geeta there. That is Studio E in the distance there. And if we take you across, you can see our radio teams are sitting there. That's the news channel, that's my colleagues over there, that's my boss over there. I don't know if he can see, he's on camera. And in the distance there is the bulletins team, so that's the 6 and 10, and the nerve centre, the news desk is right in the middle there. Now we're up here, a floor above, because we're coming to see the work of the BBC Verify team, which is really important during a general election campaign, because it's the Verify team who are going to be doing a lot of the fact checking, looking at disinformation, also looking at social media posts as well, and checking the verification of those as well. So there's lots of work that they're doing. Now this is where they all sit on these bank of desks. This is my colleague Mariana Spring, who many of you will know. Mariana, you are incredibly busy in this election campaign. I mean, you're always busy anyway, aren't you? But tell us about what you're going to be doing in particular with Verify this time.
Yes, always far too busy. And this election, I'm going to spend a lot of time looking at different people's social media feeds. And the way I'm going to be doing that is by setting up my undercover voters. So as you can see, I've got a lot of old iPhones here. Old ones, not new ones. And so the UK undercover voters are 24 characters I've created based on data and research by the National Centre for Social Research. And they have profiles across all of the main platforms: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, X and TikTok. And the characters exist in different constituencies across the UK. So 8 constituencies, 3 characters in each. And what I'm going to do is feed the algorithms, look at the kinds of content they're being recommended, pushed, targeted with, if they encounter and how they encounter hate, disinformation, polarisation, and the impact that could have on the election. And I should say, these aren't deceptive in any way. They don't have any friends, sadly. They're totally set to private, but they're the only way, really, that we can interrogate the subjective social media worlds in which this election is unfolding.
And you've done this before with Newsnight and Newscast in America. Now, you're not revealing which constituencies and which characters yet. That's going to happen later this week. But it is important to give us a sense of, as you say, the fake news that people are encountering online.
Totally. And this isn't just about content that's coming from the parties themselves, adverts, some of the stuff people might have started to see on their feeds. It's also about the stuff that's coming from political activists, supporters, or users where you think, hang on a second, who is this? It's my job to track down the source of those kinds of posts and videos, to figure out what's going on and to make sense of it for everyone who is thinking, wow, okay, this election on social media is a little bit chaotic.
Okay, great. So we can also see this on the news channel, we can hear it on Newscast, and of course there's plenty of content on the BBC website.
Exactly that.
I'm going to grab that mic from Mariana. We're going to go back through to the main hub. Now, you may have seen this, of course, on the news channel, the screens that we often do explainers from. Here they are. And you can see there the main event there. But there's lots of people, of course, working behind the scenes, going through a lot of data, going through a lot of policy statements. Fact checking is key in a general election as well. So I'm going to take you over to this side of the Verify team. This is Ben Chu, formerly of Newsnight, now your policy and analysis correspondent.
Right,
I'm going to give you the microphone. It's your turn to talk.
Yeah.
Now, Ben, your job is really important because it's not just fact checking, it's fact checking with context, isn't it?
That's right. So we'll look at all the releases of all the policy proposals from the various parties, and we will fact check them, but we'll also, as you say, put them in context. So let people know what they need to know to make sense of the claims from the various parties.
So on a normal working day, you'll come in, you'll see what the political parties are saying, you'll work out whether it's true,
Yep.
You'll work out whether it's costed, if it's
That's
a
right.
financial
Yep.
pledge or something like that, and then you'll come on to the screens and
Yep.
explain it to the news channel.
That's right, yeah. We'll often do it the night before, actually, and prepare it for the next day as well, just to try and get ahead, so we've got our heads around it, so we know what's going on, and we give the best possible context and information to viewers.
Oh, in true Blue Peter fashion, here's one you made earlier.
Yes.
Got the screens ready.
That's right.
This is what you've been working on this morning.
Yeah.
So today it's the government's policy announcement on pensions.
Yes, the
Well,
triple
not
lock.
specifically pensions,
The
but
triple lock plus is what we've been looking at today, and this claim from the government that this is going to save pensioners hundreds of pounds a year as a tax cut. So let's look at the truth of that. So I think it's really important for this claim to look at the context of the personal allowance. This is the amount you can earn before you have to pay income tax. And you can see here that this is frozen in cash terms over the next few years until 2027 at around £12,500. And this was frozen in cash terms by Jeremy Hunt and Rishi Sunak. And it's important to recognise that this is effectively a tax hike, because as people's wages and incomes go up naturally over time, more people get dragged above this level and they pay more in income tax. And one of the groups who was due to be hit by this effective tax rise was people receiving the state pension. You can see that highlighted in green here. And you can see the state pension rises by 2027 under current projections to just above the personal allowance. So that means some pensioners would start to pay income tax under current projections, and it goes up as time goes by. So what the Conservatives are proposing today is to increase the personal allowance just for pensioners, Regina, to starting at around £13,000 and rising it increasingly every year above that. So what this means is effectively pensioners, if this plan was implemented, would not actually have to pay income tax because their personal allowance would be sufficiently high that they wouldn't have to. But it's important to recognise, though, that effectively this isn't really a tax cut. It's effectively not imposing a tax rise, which the government had planned. It's also important to recognise that this new higher personal allowance, that's only for pensioners. Everyone else will still be hit by this freeze in the personal allowance over the next few years.
Okay, so thanks for taking us through that. Now, of course, this is politics, so every party has a different position on things. So we've heard from the Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, this morning. What's her response to this policy?
Well, Labour's response is that this is non-credible, that they think it's a bit desperate, but importantly, they haven't said whether they would match it or not, whether they would impose a new personal allowance for pensioners or not. So I guess we'll find out in the coming few days whether they will be prepared to match that or not.
Okay, and the nature of your job, Ben, means that in this afternoon you could be looking at some other policy altogether.
Very likely to be something completely different.
Okay, thanks very much. So that's Ben Chu, the policy and analysis correspondent with the BBC Verify team. And it's important to say, obviously, the teams will be appearing on the news channel, but there's also plenty of content online. Well, there's lots of experts up here doing their work. Let's take you straight to Robert Cuff, who's been waiting patiently. Robert's our statistics correspondent with BBC News. Everyone's interested in opinion polls. Everyone has a different view of how much weight we should give them. But just tell us what you've been working on today and what you've been working on through the campaign in terms of bringing us context when it comes to polling.
Well, I think our viewers are probably going to be inundated with polls. These are all the different polls we've seen over the course of the last Parliament. And I love data as much as the next person, but I look at this and I almost want to run and cry for help. It's too much to look at. But thankfully, we've got a team here in London and a great data team in Birmingham as well, who are kind of crunching all of these figures to pull out the trends to enable you to see what's really going on and get the signal from the noise. And you can see Labour's big lead is kind of been steady for the last half of the Parliament, and you can also see how much it takes to shift public opinion. If we go back to early 2020, you can see that big lead for the Tories around the start of lockdown drifting down, coming up again as the vaccine rollout got underway, and then really Labour starting to take over from the moment that the Partygate scandal first broke, with a big lead around the time of the mini-budget, and then as Rishi Sunak took over, starting to get some of it back. But in recent months, even though Labour have been holding steady in the mid-40s, it looks like the Tories are still slipping a little bit, and you can probably see the reason why down here in the light blue.
We'll just come in a bit closer here.
Yeah. You see the Reform Party in this light blue just coming up now. So the Conservatives are fighting both against on the left and on the right. So that's really the whole last 5 years in one chart.
What about the last few days?
Well, yeah, of course, since the election has been called, we've had about 6 further polls. Now, if you look at those polls, you might start to think, well, actually, we're seeing like a 2-point bump up for the Tories, according to one pollster. Maybe a couple saying Labour are up by 3, a few saying Reform are up by 2. But again, don't focus on the dots. Really pay attention to the averages, because that will give you a clearer picture of what's going on. And if you do that, you see really the changes. The average change we've seen for Labour is within a rounding error of 0. Same for the Tories, same for Reform, same for the Lib Dems and the Greens, and not very different
so
for
Reform
Plaid
have gone
SNP.
up a little bit, microscopically, if it's less than 1%.
I think microscopically is the right word. We would generally say that polls on average could be out by maybe 4 percentage points. So this chart only goes up to 2. We're talking twice the height of the screen. So in that scale, this slight change since...
Could be a flat line then, really.
It could really be a flat line, although we should say these are polls, they only stopped asking questions of people on Saturday, so very early in the campaign, and probably too soon for all the stories we've been covering so far to really start to be reflected.
Okay, Robert Cuff, our statistics correspondent, thank you very much. I was on the bus on Saturday and actually saw someone armed with a polling kit. She was working for a polling company, going door to door to canvass opinion. It really is early days when it comes to this campaign. Well, this floor here also, as well as Verify, the weather team is over there. I saw Carol Kirkwood walk past earlier, just to give you a sense of location. And to give you a further sense of location, I'm going to walk you back round here. There's the newsroom down there. I'm right behind you, Geeta. I don't know if you can see me wave.
I can see you. Thanks a lot, Regini. Thank you so much to you and all the team. We'll be seeing everyone much more, of course, in the coming days and weeks. We're also going to be hearing in the next few minutes, we hope, from Rishi Sunak, from the Prime Minister, who's at an event in Staffordshire in the